Hi, my name's Bianca. And this year, my family didn't forget me. They just didn't make space for me. No room, no explanation, not even a glance when I showed up. They booked themselves into a luxury resort for Thanksgiving and told the front desk, just the real family. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part? They'd been erasing me for years. One silent dinner, one missing photo, one stolen thank you at a time. And when I finally stopped funding the life they pretended to earn, they called me cruel. So here's my question. What do you do when the people who raised you rewrite the story and leave your name out completely? They knew I was coming. I had confirmed it in the group chat 2 weeks ago, sent my arrival time, even dropped a message the night before. Landing tomorrow at 2 p.m. Excited to see everyone. No one responded. Still, I told myself they were probably busy. That maybe they were planning a surprise, or something overly elaborate like Mom used to do for Dahlia. The Breakers was exactly how I imagined it. Grand, serene, blindingly expensive. The kind of place where families wore matching outfits and argued softly about spa appointments. I stepped out of my rideshare, dragging my navy blue suitcase behind me, heels clicking too sharply against the marbled entrance. I saw them before they saw me. Mom, Dad, and Dahlia, sitting by the fireplace in the lobby. They weren't laughing, not quite. Just comfortable, relaxed, like they belonged here. And then they saw me. Mom's eyes landed on mine for a split second. Then she looked away. No smile, no wave. Dad scratched his cheek and turned toward Dahlia, who didn't even flinch. The kind of silence you don't trip over. It's laid down like a rug. I approached the check-in counter, smiled politely at the woman behind the desk, offered my ID. Bianca Holloway, I said, tucking my hair behind one ear. She clicked a few keys, frowned, and clicked again. I'm sorry, she said, voice polite, brows gently pinched. I don't see a reservation under that name. That can't be right, I replied, still keeping my tone soft. I'm with the Holloway family. They should have booked the rooms. She double-checked the system, then again. I could feel it, that tightening in my chest. A man wheeled a baby stroller past me. Someone to my left whispered, "Is that her?" And I didn't know if they meant me. I do see 2 rooms, the clerk offered, hesitant now. One for Mr. and Mrs. Holloway, and one booked by a Miss Dahlia Holloway for herself and a child. Then she looked up. That's all? My lips parted slightly. So, nothing under my name? Before she could answer, I heard it. That unmistakable voice, with a smile behind it, sharpened to cut glass. Oh, Bianca made it. Dahlia strolled up, her heels announcing every step. White slacks, designer bag, phone in hand. We weren't sure you'd come. Thought you'd be buried in work, as always. She looked at the concierge, then me. We only booked for the family. I turned to her slowly. I am family. She tilted her head. You know what I mean. The active family. A smile so sweet I could almost smell the perfume behind it. I glanced back at Mom and Dad, still seated. Mom pretended to scroll through something on her phone. Dad coughed, adjusted his collar, and looked toward the gift shop like it had just caught on fire. The clerk stood frozen. My heart didn't race. It just stilled. I inhaled, nodded once, and said, "Thank you for checking." Then I turned to Dahlia. You've made your point. She blinked, like she didn't expect me to be so calm. Wait, Bianca, don't be dramatic. I smiled. It's not drama, I said. It's math. 2 rooms, 4 names. 0 for me. I pulled the suitcase handle tight and walked away. No one followed. Not even Mom, not even to explain. My shoes made no sound on the carpet. Out the tall glass doors, sunlight poured over the palm trees, gentle and clean. I didn't cry. Not then. Not when I stepped outside. But the silence inside me? It screamed. The valet asked if I needed help with my bag. I shook my head, then stepped off the shaded awning and into the afternoon heat. The sun fell across the sidewalk in wide golden strips. Everything around me looked like a scene from a holiday commercial. White linen, clinking glasses, kids running barefoot through sprinklers across the lawn. I stood still. Instead of walking back inside to argue, I tapped my phone. The Lyft app was open in seconds. I selected the airport. A silver sedan would arrive in 4 minutes. That was enough time to breathe. Not cry, not call anyone. Just breathe. A group of guests stepped out behind me, laughing, dragging matching monogrammed suitcases. The man held the elevator door for his wife. She kissed his cheek. I looked down at my phone again. 3 minutes. It hit me, just for a second, that I didn't belong there. Not just at the breakers, but in that family dynamic. I was the punctuation at the end of a sentence no one intended to write. The car pulled up. The driver, a man in his 50s with a kind face, rolled down the window. "For Bianca?" "Yes," I said, opening the back door and sliding in. As we merged into traffic, I leaned my head against the window and watched palm trees blur past. My phone buzzed once. Then again. I didn't look right away. It could have been a work email, a reminder to pay the electric bill. But no. Dahlia. Then Mom. Then home. I turned the screen down. The notifications continued. Messages stacked one after another, like a slow-moving avalanche. Dahlia. "Amy was asking where you were. I didn't know what to say." Lorraine. "You didn't have to make a scene in front of people. This was not the time." Milton. "This isn't how we handle things." Dahlia again. "You're being overdramatic. You always do this." I hadn't said a word. Not to them. Not to the concierge. Not even to myself. But somehow, my silence was the drama. I took a long, quiet breath and looked out the window. There were rows of orange trees just past the fence line. The smell of citrus hung in the air, subtle but grounding. It wasn't rage I felt, not quite. It was a rising certainty. They never called when I got the grant. Not when I was awarded that startup fellowship in DC, or when my research hit peer review. No group text. No, "we're proud of you." Not even a heart emoji from Mom. But now that I'd left the lobby without permission, suddenly I was the headline. The driver turned onto the road toward the airport. "You okay back there?" he asked gently, glancing in the mirror. "I will be," I said. I muted my phone. 42 missed calls, 8 voicemails. I tapped on one just to see. It was Dahlia. "You left Amy hanging. She brought your favorite candy. I mean, you know how much she looks forward to seeing you? You couldn't stay for just one dinner. We were trying to have a nice family weekend." The tone wasn't angry. It was performative, like she was rehearsing for someone else's sympathy. I deleted it. Then the rest. Somewhere between the second turnoff and the airport entrance, my shoulders stopped clenching. I arrived at the terminal, stepped out, thanked the driver, and walked into the chill of artificial air conditioning. The high ceilings echoed with rollaway bags and boarding announcements. I checked the next available flight. The cost didn't matter. While waiting in line, I opened my phone again. This time, I saw a text from a number I didn't recognize. "You could have just stayed quiet, but you made a scene. Hope it was worth it." No name, no context, but I knew who it was. I locked the screen, placed the phone in my coat pocket, and looked up at the flight board. My gate was posted. They weren't angry because I left. They were angry because I didn't stay to be controlled. I found my seat by the window, row 14. The aisle was still busy with passengers trying to fit oversized bags into overhead bins. I leaned against the cold window pane and exhaled slowly as the plane began its taxi down the runway. The hum of the engine rose, steady and deep, but my chest was still louder. Not panicked, just full. Like a glass one tilt away from spilling. Somewhere beneath us, Palm Springs shrank into tidy neighborhoods and then into open, endless sand. I didn't cry. I don't think I even blinked. My phone was in airplane mode, tucked into the seat pocket, out of reach, and still too close. I wasn't thinking about the hotel, or the text, or the sound of Dahlia's voice when she said, "the real family." That would be too obvious. Instead, what showed up, uninvited but familiar, was a Tuesday in October when I was 12. I had set the table myself. No balloons, no cake, not even a happy birthday from anyone before school. Dad had gone to a tennis mixer, Mom had a migraine, or said she did. That night, I boiled pasta, poured a little sauce from a jar, and sat down alone at the table. I had wrapped my own gift weeks earlier, a second-hand paperback I'd picked up at Goodwill and saved, just to feel like something arrived for me. They remembered Dahlia's 14th with sushi trays, a photographer, and a weekend rental at the lake. The photo from that day lived on our fridge for years. Me? I learned how to clear plates without making a sound. That wasn't the worst part. The worst part was that I never expected different after that. I closed my eyes and let my head rest against the seat. The hum of the cabin surrounded me like a blanket, muffled but not comforting. A few years ago, we had a family dinner. Just the 5 of us: Dad, Mom, Dahlia, Amy, and me. It was after my startup's second round of funding. I had just signed a contract with a federal research grant. But the conversation that night wasn't about that. It was about how Dahlia helped my parents secure their home refinance. How smart she was with numbers. You know, she even helped us cover the down payment, Mom said, gesturing at Dahlia with her wine glass. I remember sitting there, chicken half cut, and wondering if my mother actually believed that. I was the one who wired the money. I was the one who absorbed the tax penalty so they wouldn't lose the deposit. I had the paperwork, I had the receipt, but I said nothing. I cut another piece of chicken and nodded like everyone else. There's something about being erased that doesn't always come with malice. Sometimes it's just indifference. And honestly, I'm not sure which one hurts more. The flight attendant passed by with a cart. I waved her off gently and turned my head to the opposite window. Somewhere in my carry-on was a folder labeled Documents, Personal, Family. Inside it was everything I'd kept. Emails, bank transfers, screenshots. I never planned to use it. It just felt safer knowing it existed. On a visit home a while back, I wandered into the hallway near the guest bathroom and saw a new addition to the wall. A photo collage in a crisp white frame, centered under a sign that read, Walker Family, 4 hearts, 1 home. There were 12 photos. Mom and Dad in Key West, Dahlia and Amy carving pumpkins, a Christmas brunch, a summer picnic. Me? Not once. Not in the background. Not even blurred in the corner. I didn't say anything. I took a picture of the collage with my phone and sent it to my work email with no subject line. I still have that email saved in an unsorted folder. It's probably the only family photo I'll never delete. The captain's voice crackled overhead, announcing our initial descent into Denver. Outside, the light had changed. The sky was still, no sunset yet, just that gray-blue tint that always came before it dipped into orange. I kept looking out the window, not to see anything, just to let the stillness take shape. The truth wasn't that they forgot me. The truth was, they remembered exactly how they wanted the story to go. By the time I got home, the sky over Denver had faded to a soft, dry gray. The apartment was still as I left it, quiet, with that faint metallic scent of cold air that sneaks in through the window seals. I dropped my keys in the dish by the door and turned on the living room lamp. A pool of yellow light pushed back the dimness. I didn't even take off my coat before opening my laptop. It woke up instantly. 46 unread emails. The names popped out first. Mom, Dad, Dahlia. Then a couple from mutual friends of the family, the type who never really spoke to me, unless it was about Dahlia's birthday party plans, or if I could recommend a good dermatologist. One subject line read, "Are you okay?" The next, "This is not how we do things." I didn't respond. Instead, I opened a folder tucked deep in my cloud drive. Family transfers, receipts. I had saved every wire confirmation, every tuition bill I'd paid for Amy, every invoice I had covered and signed for over the past 8 years. Not out of spite, out of instinct. People forget things too easily when it's convenient. Scrolling through the files, I clicked open the PayPal receipt from last Monday. $327.44 for Amy's school's Thanksgiving-themed photo shoot. I had paid for it without being asked. Dahlia hadn't thanked me. She never did. But the very next day, she posted a glossy portrait of Amy in a knitted sweater and corduroy dress with the caption, "So proud to support Amy's dreams, always." No tag, no mention, just her holding the spotlight like it belonged to her by birthright. I could have commented, could have said, "Glad it worked out," or "You're welcome." But what would that have solved? The game wasn't about gratitude, it was about erasing me so she could be the one applauded. I minimized the window and leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling for a beat too long. Eventually, I opened another folder, older than the first. It held digital slideshows, ones I designed over the years for family reunions. I had arranged the photos, edited the transitions, even timed them to soft instrumental music. I clicked through one from last year. Dahlia, Amy, our parents, extended cousins. Me? Not once. There were photos I had taken, shots I remembered because I was the only one holding the camera. But somehow, in the final version, I was absent. Not blurry, not turned away. Just removed. That's when it hit me. They didn't mind using what I built. They just didn't want me standing in front of it. I got up and walked over to the side table near the bookshelf. Inside the second drawer was a small navy blue gift box, unopened, with a silver ribbon still crisp and smooth. I'd brought it to give to Amy, something I had picked up during a business trip to Portland. A simple pearl hair clip, elegant, modest, something I thought she'd wear when she was older, something not meant for a camera. The note inside was still there. For you, not for posting, just because. I didn't unwrap it. Instead, I placed the box back in the drawer and slid it shut. That kind of silence doesn't scream, it lingers. I sat back down at my desk, opened a blank draft in my email, typed out one sentence. Since I'm not part of the family, effective immediately, I'm also not part of the payroll. No salutation, no punctuation after that. I hovered over send, then clicked save as draft. Some things weren't meant to be delivered yet. But the words? They were no longer stuck. The next morning came quietly, with a pale, frost-edged light cutting across the living room rug. I made coffee the same way I always did. 1 scoop too strong, black, no sugar. I drank it standing up by the window, watching Denver begin to move again after the holiday. It was the day after Thanksgiving, and while most of the country was hunting for deals or rolling back into bed, I was putting on my best Navy suit and heading to Boulder. By 9, I was backstage at the Colorado Biotech Leadership Summit, flipping through a folder of talking points I didn't need. I'd written them, lived them, bled for them in labs and boardrooms no one in my family ever cared to ask about. But today wasn't about proving anything. It was about showing up because I always had. The ballroom was packed, rows of scientists, investors, academics, 2 federal officials from the NIH Grant Committee, and a few startup CEOs who'd once tried to take credit for my work. I walked up the side aisle as they introduced me, not a tremor in my step. I took the stage, looked out into the sea of eager, curious faces, and spoke for 32 minutes about the ethics of AI in pharmaceutical trials. They listened. They took notes. They clapped, standing, loud, and longer than expected. Afterward, someone from the Denver Post snapped a photo as I shook hands with one of the grant officers. I wasn't looking at the camera. I was looking at the projection behind me. My own slides, my name bold and quiet under the phrase, Lead Researcher, Phase 2, Authorization Confirmed. Hours later, I got a Google alert. A business blog ran a short piece. Colorado's biotech maverick, the mind behind quiet impact. I didn't repost it, didn't forward it to the family thread. Not because I didn't care, but because I already knew who wouldn't. That night, back in Denver, I curled up on my sofa with a wool blanket and my laptop. I was checking emails when I saw a notification from Instagram. Idalia Holloway just posted for the first time in a while. I tapped it open. There she was, on the rooftop of the Ivory, posing with Amy, wine glass in hand, ring light reflecting off her cheek. Caption: Nothing better than family time on a rooftop that reminds you where you belong. My mouth curved, just barely. I knew the rooftop. I'd helped design it 3 years ago when my firm invested in the Ivory's sustainability upgrade. I didn't put my name on the investor list. I owned 17% through a silent holding group. But I picked the teak benches and the solar lighting specs. I chose the curved railing so kids like Amy couldn't climb over. They were sitting on my roof, posing like they owned the view. And the world kept clapping. I set my phone down and opened my inbox. A grant update from NIH had come in, routine. I meant to forward it to one of my junior analysts, attach my notes. But I was tired, clicking too fast. My fingers slipped. Instead of forwarding, I hit reply all to the last group thread with my family. The message read, "Excited to lead Phase 2 implementation. Thanks to the board for the continued trust. Ready to push forward with the full ethics framework next quarter." 5 minutes later, my phone buzzed. "Dad? Wait, you're leading what?" I didn't respond. 2 minutes after that, "Dahlia, why didn't you tell us this? You could have said something. That's huge." I looked at her message for a moment, then typed back a single period and hit send. No words. Just the smallest signal that I saw her scramble, and that it wasn't mine to soothe. Later that evening, I checked LinkedIn. A message waited from my cousin Ethan, who I hadn't spoken to in years. "You're kind of a legend in my department. Didn't even know we were related. Wild." I stared at the message for a long time. Then I smiled. Small, quiet, not for anyone else. The smile faded by the time I brushed my teeth. I stood over the sink in my bathroom, staring at the way the overhead light cast sharp lines across my face. The mirror didn't offer any revelation. Just me, makeup gone, hair pulled back, eyes still sharp. I didn't feel victorious, just finished. Back in my home office, I opened my laptop again. Not to write, not to research, just to see. There it was. 3 new emails, all in the last 20 minutes. The first was from my mother. Subject: "What you did?" I clicked. "You know your sister's always been emotionally delicate. What you did, publicly, humiliated her. You've put a wedge in this family that may never heal. This family is not a competition, Bianca. It never has been." I almost laughed at that last line. The second email, shorter, came from Dad. "You could have given us a heads up before going public like that. It's not that we're not proud. We just didn't know. It looks like you were hiding something." And the third, from Dahlia. "You always have to make it about you, don't you? All those years of helping, and you never let us forget it. You did it just to hold it over us. Admit it. You didn't do any of it out of love." I sat with those words for a moment. Then I highlighted each sentence that mattered. Put a wedge. Did it out of love? Should have warned us. I didn't reply. Not to them. Not yet. Instead, I opened a different message. This one from Vernon. The subject line, "Your call." He didn't write much. "They made their choices. So did you. You were right to stop. Let me know if you want me to speak with the accountant." I read it 3 times. You were right to stop. That was all I needed. I minimized the window and opened the family finance folder on my desktop. A small subfolder labeled Trust Distribution Vernon Family sat untouched. I moved it to an encrypted drive. Done. Out of reach. No longer my burden to manage or explain. Then I started typing. 2. Milton Holloway, Lorraine Holloway, Dahlia Holloway. Subject: Support discontinued. Effective immediately, I will no longer cover or support the following: Amy's private school tuition, monthly HOA fees for the Naples condo family property, upkeep and landscaping, shared credit card tied to my account, all subscription services and utilities billed through my name. Please make arrangements before the next billing cycle. I am not available for negotiation. This is final. Bianca. I blind copied Vernon, and I hit send. No flourish, no extra words, just clean edges. Then I closed the laptop and leaned back, letting the chair creak beneath me. For the first time in years, I heard nothing. No calendar ping, no bank alert, no digital leash tying me to them. They had told themselves for so long that I was the strong one, which, in family code, meant the one you could pile everything on because she'd never drop it. The one who'd pay, patch, fix, and stay silent. I didn't drop the weight. I handed it back. The evening stretched long and still. Outside, the street was wet from melting sleet, cars hissing along slowly. My phone lay screen down beside me. It hadn't buzzed since I sent the email. That silence should have comforted me. But I knew it wasn't peace. It was recoil. Their chaos, searching for somewhere new to land. I didn't try to stop it. I logged out of every shared account, Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime, deleted the guest Wi-Fi profile I'd set up at their place 2 years ago, changed the password to the Dropbox folder labeled Amy's Tuition Records. At midnight, just as I was about to power down completely, my phone lit up. Caller ID, home. The name sat there on the screen like it belonged to someone else. I didn't answer. I didn't even consider it. I watched the call ring through, then stop. No voicemail, just static left behind. They used to say I was ungrateful, that I didn't understand how much they'd done, but I knew the truth. You don't rip roots from someone who watered the whole tree and expect no collapse. Saturday morning unfolded like it always did, with the rituals I clung to like armor. I stirred the sourdough starter, fed it with quiet precision, made my coffee, and sat on the edge of the couch, half awake, scrolling my phone with the kind of numb autopilot only early mornings can bring. But the moment I opened Instagram, something in the air changed. Not physically, no wind shifted, no eerie silence fell. But internally, the atmosphere tightened. A chill crept in that had nothing to do with the room temperature. 13 notifications, a tag, a mention. And then, that post. The photo was familiar. Delia, glowing, poised near the railing of the Ivory's rooftop garden. The same rooftop I'd spent months helping to design, fund, and furnish. She stood in a shaft of sunlight, like she was born to be there. Amy tucked under one arm like a glossy accessory, a flute of Prosecco balanced in her other hand like a crown jewel. Her caption was long. Too long for the standard attention span. I had to tap more to read the rest. That alone should have told me something. Some people think success means abandoning the people who raised them. We gave so much, loved as best we could. But not every heart knows how to love back. Not everyone values loyalty. And when they erase you in silence, you find your voice another way. I stared at the screen, blinked once, then again. Then took a sip of coffee, not taking my eyes off the words. Within seconds, I saw that Mom had reposted it. No edits. No commentary of her own, except a single line below it. We did everything we could. Some things can't be bought. The likes climbed fast. So did the comments. I recognized the names. Neighbors from the cul-de-sac, people from church, a couple of Mom's old book club friends. So sorry, Dahlia, you deserve better. This is heartbreaking. She'll come around, they always do. No one said my name. No one had to. I was the ghost in the margins of their grief. The silhouette they filled in with whatever version of me made the story work best. I knew the role they'd given me. The ungrateful daughter. The sister who chose money over love. The one who walked away. Except I hadn't walked away. I had carried. Quietly. Constantly. And until now, without complaint. I set the coffee down, the warmth suddenly too sharp against my palms. Opened my laptop, navigated to a folder I never thought I'd need to open like this. Family records. I had kept it obsessively, updated it weekly, not because I was waiting for a fight, but because patterns leave trails. And I knew, somewhere deep down, that one day I might need to show mine. Receipts. PDFs, screenshots, wire transfers, tuition letters from Amy's private school with my email as the main contact. It was all there. I opened Canva, created a clean professional carousel. Not a smear campaign, not a rage spiral, just facts. Quiet, cold, organized. Slide 1, $47,380, 60 paid in tuition and fees for Amy's education over 6 years. Slide 2, $21,700 property upkeep, including roof repair, plumbing fixes, and 3 years of back taxes on the house I didn't live in. Slide 3, $14,200 gifts, vacations, emergency dental work, Dahlia's car repair after the little accident last December, a loan that was never repaid, never acknowledged. I didn't add red arrows or circles. I didn't highlight or italicize or annotate, just data. Like I was preparing a report. And on the final slide, I was told family doesn't need to keep score. But when you're erased, silence becomes consent. I posted the carousel on Instagram, shared it to LinkedIn too, with a caption as stripped down as my patience. This is not revenge, this is correction. I didn't tag anyone, I didn't write a name, but anyone who knew the people involved could connect the dots. Within an hour, the post had over 3,000 shares. By lunchtime, Dahlia's original post had vanished. I didn't screenshot it. I didn't need to. The echo of it had already been absorbed by too many. Still, its removal felt like a small shift in gravity. A quiet admission. Messages started trickling in, from someone I hadn't spoken to since senior year. I always wondered how she afforded all that. Now I know. Another pinged in from my father. No greeting, no punctuation. Was that really necessary? I read it. Let it sit. Then closed the message. And then came Amy's. Is it true you bought me the clip? She meant the barrette. The rhinestone one she wore at her school recital last spring. The one she'd gushed over. The one Dahlia said had come from some boutique she couldn't remember the name of. I replied, yes. That was all. No qualifiers, no self-defense. Just the truth. By sunset, the post had cleared 10,000 shares. I never checked the comments. Didn't open the think pieces or reaction threads. I wasn't interested in shaping a narrative. This was never about followers, sympathy, or going viral. It was about reclaiming the space where my story had been erased. Not louder, just clearer, not bitter, just true. Some things can't be bought, but some things, once given, deserve not to be buried. The quiet that followed was different. Not the kind that asked to be filled, but the kind that settled into the bones. I spent Saturday night with a book open, but unread, letting time pass without naming it. When the light outside turned gray-blue again, I didn't resist the morning. I got up, pulled on a thick sweater, and poured myself coffee. The alert came at 8:17 a.m., an email from Rowan and Doyle, LLP. I recognized the name. Vernon had used the same firm when setting up his living trust 10 years ago. The subject line read, Notification of Trust Disbursement Adjustments, Immediate. The message was formal, cold in tone, but warm in implication. To all listed beneficiaries of the Vernon Holloway Family Trust, effective immediately, all financial disbursements to Milton Holloway, Lorraine Holloway, and Dahlia Holloway have been suspended indefinitely. This decision was made following actions deemed inconsistent with the values of the grantor. In Vernon Holloway's own words, cruelty cloaked in image cannot stand beside dignity earned in silence. Distribution to Bianca Holloway will continue under the same terms, with full discretion moving forward. This decision is final. It was copied to all three of them. I wasn't BCC'd. I was CC'd. Equal footing, equal visibility. At the bottom, Vernon had signed off directly. I stand with Bianca. This is final. I didn't cry, but I did sit back and close my eyes. I imagined the moment they'd opened it, Mom reading it over the edge of her coffee, Dad muttering something about being blindsided, Dahlia furiously texting her attorney friend in Los Angeles. And for once, I didn't care. I scrolled through Facebook on instinct and saw Lorraine had posted something cryptic, probably aimed at whoever would listen. Sometimes it's the ones closest to you who cut the deepest, and still, you pray for them. Underneath, a friend had commented, "Did Vernon really cut you off?" She hadn't replied. Dahlia's Instagram account had disappeared completely. Not just the post, the whole profile. I didn't bother checking LinkedIn. By midday, I had jazz playing softly through the speakers. The smell of bergamot tea filled the room. I opened my planner and flipped to the next quarter's budgeting sheet. I crossed out one line in red, family disbursements, $3,000 month. Next to it, I wrote, Q1 R&D expansion, green light. There was a photo frame on my desk now. I hadn't always had one, but I'd printed all still from the summit. Me, mid-speech, hands open, eyes steady. It wasn't for social media. It wasn't a message. It was just for me. When the email arrived from Amy that afternoon, I almost didn't open it. But the subject line was simple. Just wondering. Inside it read, Mom's crying. Grandpa won't talk to her. Are you okay? I miss you. I stared at it for a long time. My fingers hovered above the keyboard, then moved the email into a folder labeled For Later. Not because I didn't care, but because I knew that any answer right now would be too soon, too complicated, and too heavy for a child to hold. By the time the sun had started to dip, I'd gone for a short walk, cooked a meal that didn't come from a microwave, and made peace with the fact that this version of life, wasn't a temporary chapter. It was the book I was finally writing on my own terms. I closed my laptop, exhaled slowly, and whispered into the still room. They lost me long ago. They just hadn't realized it, until now. The days that followed were quiet, in a way I hadn't known quiet before. Not the kind that comes when no one's talking, but the kind that settles in after the shouting has stopped. There were no more emails, no more calls, just the hum of the heater cycling on and off, the slow melt of snow outside the window, and a stillness I didn't have to earn. I was halfway through my second cup of tea when the email arrived. The sender's name didn't ring a bell, but I opened it anyway. Bianca, I probably shouldn't write this, but I've been thinking about it for days. I saw the post, and I saw how your mom and Dahlia responded. I was there for some of those birthdays, some of those dinners. I watched how they treated you, and I never said anything. I should have. I'm sorry. There was no ask, no attempt to reconnect, just a late apology sent into the void. I didn't respond. I bookmarked it and closed my laptop. Sometimes truth shows up late, but at least it shows up. That evening, as the light thinned across the city and the first flakes started to stick, I walked to the drawer where I'd placed the Navy gift box. The ribbon was still intact, tied like it had been waiting for the right moment, not the right person. I opened it slowly. Inside, the pearl hair clip rested on its cushion. Underneath was the note I'd written months ago. For you, not for Instagram, just because. I held it in my hand longer than I expected. The metal was cold, but not unkind. Instead of mailing it, I placed it into a new velvet pouch I had ordered online earlier that week. I rewrote the card. Same message, slightly different ending. For later, when truth matters more than appearances. I didn't know if Amy would ever wear it, but I knew I wouldn't give it while it could be claimed, displayed, or spun into someone else's post. Some gifts are meant to be earned in time, not delivered on schedule. A few days later, an envelope arrived. Handwritten, uneven, clearly from a child. The return address was the family's house in Naples. Inside, on lined notebook paper, in purple pen, was Amy's handwriting. Aunt Bianca, I found the receipts. I found the clip too. I didn't know. I'm sorry. I miss you more than I miss the stuff. Love, Amy. I sat with it. Not in sadness, but in something older than sadness, acceptance. I read the letter 3 times. Then, I folded it carefully and placed it in the same drawer as the clip. Children learn what love looks like by watching who gets left out. They notice who always takes the picture but never appears in the frame. They know who pays, even when no one says thank you. And eventually, they figure out who kept showing up. Until they didn't. That week, I met Vernon for tea. We didn't talk about the fallout. We didn't need to. We discussed his neighbor's dog, a grant application I was reviewing, and the merits of mulled wine versus spiced cider. He handed me a newspaper clipping he thought I'd like, an op-ed about women building without permission. I tucked it into my purse and made a mental note to read it before bed. Back at home, I typed notes for a proposal I'd been thinking about quietly for years. A foundation in my name for first-generation women entering STEM fields. Not splashy, not performative, just real help behind the scenes, where I like to live. I didn't announce it, I didn't post it, but I built it. And I funded it with the same resources they once called extra money when they thought I'd never say no. On my desk, I kept the photo from the summit. Just one image, no caption, no digital proof. Just me, arms open, explaining something too complex for the people who had always seen me as the one with no voice. As I walked past the mirror near the entryway, I caught my reflection. No filter, no shame. Not younger, not broken. Just here. Forgiveness isn't the door I walked through, I whispered aloud, barely moving my lips. But I found the window, and I opened it,